Sir Thomas Sopwith lived to be 100. On the day of his 100th birthday, the entire aviation industry gathered at Brooklands to pay tribute to the aviator and industrialist who was universally respected and admired. Sir George Edwards paid tribute thus: "It is jolly encouraging to know that one chap can last through 100 years, most of which was spent in the aviation industry, and still be all right at the end of it." Tom Sopwith died in 1989, aged 101, the last remaining pioneer from the early days of British aviation. He had been interviewed for the BBC 4 years previously and asked, "What do you consider the reason for your outstanding success?" His reply: "Pure luck." In 1985, Mikhail Gorbachev came to power in the Soviet Union, determined to improve the economic situation in his country rather than continue its arms race with the West. This led to a thaw in East-West relations, and in 1989 President George C. Bush declared that the Cold War was over. The collapse of the Iron Curtain and the breakup of the Warsaw Pact led to radical changes in Western defence thinking. This so-called peace dividend led to a retrenchment in the defence industry, similar to that experienced after both world wars. The large numbers of aircraft needed for the protection of Western Europe and other Cold War operations were no longer required. The future requirement would be for smaller numbers of multi-role aircraft. This led British Aerospace to rationalise its military aircraft division. Kingston was vulnerable because of its relatively small size, and the decision was taken to focus production on a few large sites, mostly in the north of England. So it was announced that BAE Kingston would close in 1992. A sad end to 80 years of enterprise and innovation in the Royal Borough. It was also a bitter economic blow to Kingston, which at one stroke lost its largest employer with a workforce of some 4,000. There was an attempt to list the office block, but this was turned down as being designed by the same architect as the Milk Marketing Board building in Thames Ditton, which was in turn demolished a few years later. In 1993, the wrecking gangs moved in. Bob Marsh, a former head of future projects, wrote to the Surrey Comet, "The sadness was tinged with one of bewilderment in view of the healthy state of the Hawk and Harrier projects, and the fact that through those 80 years the British Armed Forces were never without a Kingston aircraft in frontline service. The company had the uncanny ability to produce the right aircraft at the right time, which played a major part in the successful outcome of 2 world wars, and, more recently, the rescue of the Falklands. It has been said that the history of our nation has been significantly affected by the products from the Kingston factories, and it consequently seems fitting not to forget the contributions of the fitters, tin bashers, plumbers, turners, chippies, draftsmen, stressmen, aerodynamicists, test pilots, and commercial and secretarial staff. The parting vision of their revered workplace presented to the long-serving Hawker employees was marred by a long queue of Pickford's removal vans congregated like vultures. What a blessing Sir Thomas Sopwith did not live to see it. Today, Kingston-designed aircraft are still being built and are serving with the RAF and foreign air forces. BAE Systems, the result of a merger in 1999 between British Aerospace and GEC, continues to make Hawks at its factory in Brough. The Harrier II is still in service with the US Marines. Sopwith and Hawker aircraft can be seen in museums. Brooklands Museum has 6 Kingston aircraft. Amongst aviation enthusiasts, Sidney Cam is viewed as a giant whose achievements were unique. A handful of enthusiasts still fly Sopwith and Hawker aircraft at air displays. The two iconic fighters of the Second World War, the Spitfire and the Hurricane, fly today on ceremonial occasions as part of the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight. Approaching the centenary of Thomas Sopwith moving his factory to Kingston in 1912, there is little public awareness in the town of its unique aviation story. The aircraft courses at Kingston University and Kingston College are the very last link to its engineering past. Some iconic buildings do still remain. On the south side of Canbury Park Road stands the old experimental shop where the Hurricane was first assembled. Today, an office block known as Sidley House. The island site was vacated by Kingston University in 1994 and redeveloped as flats, now known as Sigrist Square. However, the corner of the building which housed the offices and boardrooms was listed and still stands, today called Sopwith House. There is no public commemoration in Kingston of its historic aviation industry and the important part it played in winning 2 world wars. The only visible reminders today of this heritage are the Hurricane propellers built into the iron railings of Sigrist Square. But what can never be taken away is the extraordinary outburst of engineering innovation which took place in Kingston, and the impact it had on the history of the 20th century. It is a proud heritage, and no other place in Britain can claim so many aviation firsts.